research component of the so-called MAGC program. For background, the MAGC program is financed by the UK government. So we have Michael Mills here from the UK government today to speak about that. And is implemented by the International Finance Corporation together with partners from academia and defense. Overall objective of the MAGC program is to boost the uptake of green building construction and designs in emerging markets. Under the research component, we try to fill evidence and knowledge gaps through different studies and research we will learn about today. The centerpiece of the MAGC Research program are the smart metering impact evaluation. One of them is being implemented here in South Africa. So in today's event, you'll hear an update on that study. That is a very important point, transitioning from the pilot phase into the main phase, and it will be wrapped up by the end of 2026. So you can expect the final results of that study to become available in early 2027. Sorry. So we have 2 hours. Just going to quickly show you the agenda. So we're going to start with Michael Mills from the perspective of the UK government. Then we have my IFC colleague Omid Saberi. He's the global lead for IFC's EDGE Green Building Program. He will talk about the evolution of EDGE here in South Africa. Then I will give you a quick overview of the different components of the MAGC Research programs that we implement globally. Then we'll have Simon Elam from University College London. He will introduce the overall design of the smart metering studies that are implemented in 3 countries worldwide. Then Grant Smith from University of Cape Town. He will go through a deep dive on the smart metering study in South Africa. And then we take a quick round of Q&A on the research part before we will have our 2 developers from South Africa who have taken up EDGE into their portfolio. So we have Matthew Wally from Baldwin, and we have Blake Bowden from IHS. And then after another Q&A on the developer's perspective, we should have about 15 minutes for some lunch and networking, which will be over there. Before we get started, a couple of quick admin requests. So if you haven't signed off on the participants list, if I could please request you to do so. That's important for us to track how many people we're reaching with our events. At the end of the session, we'd really appreciate if you could give some feedback. So we'll have a QR code for you to scan on your phone. It's a 3-minute quick survey, which you could potentially fill out during the catering or on your way back. So thanks if you could do that. Otherwise, we can reach out to you by email. And yeah, we'll have this event video recorded. So for further dissemination, I hope that's fine for everyone. And yeah, now Michael Mills from the UK government.
Thank you very much, Elaine. As you heard, I'm Michael Mills from the UK government, and I'm here representing the government as the corporate finance advisor to the MAGC program. I just say MAGC, I never say Market Accelerator, etc., etc., etc. Anyway, as you heard, we're the donors. We are the sole donors. We're not the sole financiers. I've already met one of our financing partners, and we rely heavily on the private sector to whom we attempt to crowd in their capital to make these things really work and to make them buzz, make them hum, go from what is, our concept to something more global. I'd like to extend my thanks to the IFC for organizing and hosting this event, and of course to UCT, the Hasso-Plattner Center, on the same basis as our hosts, and to all our stakeholders, those contributing to the MAGC Smart Metering Program study here in South Africa, and all the others who are contributing to the green building take-up throughout the country. I'm reading my remarks on behalf of our program team, who are 3 strong. That's a strong team. We normally have 1 or 2 people actually implementing and managing our programs. They all have prior commitments. I'm here at fairly short notice. But before I dive into it, just a quick personal note. I'm particularly pleased to have been asked to fill in for my colleagues because I have a very close connection to UCT. I spent 4 years on this campus here well over 40 years ago, don't ask, but I came out with a BSc in civil engineering. So I can truly say I'm a Cape Townian. It's not quite the same as Ich bin ein Berliner. It's, doesn't quite have that gravity, but I am a civil engineer by training, but an investor in energy and energy efficiency and many different aspects of development finance. That's now my métier. And I'm sure that you'll agree that disciplines like civil engineering, like Prof chemical engineering initially, are particularly relevant to the EDGE and MAGIC programs and to the rest of today's and tomorrow's events. I've had the odd visit back to UCT in all those 40 years, but this is the first time I've been invited back on a personal basis, on a professional basis, and I'm thrilled to be here and looking forward to today's proceedings, as well as the rest of the week. Now down to business. The UK is strongly committed to our net zero mission, which we'll achieve through the decarbonisation of key sectors of the global economy. We, the UK, play our part through delivering initiatives such as the Breakthrough Agenda and, most relevant to us today, the MAGIC programme. These form part of the UK government's £11.6 billion International Climate Finance Fund, which we've pledged in support of developing countries worldwide, notably in South Africa. Turning to the building sector, that alone accounts for almost 40% of all energy-related emissions worldwide. So decarbonising the building and construction sectors is of critical importance in the fight against climate change, which is the area that I work in. And as the building stock is increasing by 5.5 billion square meters annually, we should note that by 2035, 10 years' time, nearly 2/3 of the buildings that will be standing in 2060 will already have been built, making it all the more important that new buildings like this one minimize emissions and energy use. Turning to the UK's development role, in our quest to achieve net zero, we need to change the status quo. We need to ensure that emerging markets have the tools to design and certify resource-efficient and zero-carbon buildings, and innovations such as EDGE play a vital role in this process. We're proud to support the implementation of EDGE through the MAGIC programme, which we've delivered in partnership with the IFC since 2018. This $170 million programme is aimed at achieving transformational change by providing blended concessional finance and technical assistance measures to boost the green construction sectors in South Africa, as well as in 23 other emerging markets around the world. The UK's donor funding for MAGIC has supported 25 investments in 9 countries, and it leverages nearly $2.5 billion for green construction and building retrofit projects. This work's vital in ensuring that we increase the proportion of energy-efficient buildings being constructed around the world using the best building and certification practices, all of which are underpinned by the EDGE standards. One of the reasons we're here today is to keep abreast of the MAGIC Research programme, a critical part of MAGIC overall. Smart metering study being conducted here in South Africa by colleagues from the IFC and UCT, thank you again, aims to test the real-world performance of green technologies against those in the EDGE platform database. This research provides important insights into how EDGE certification of green buildings can lead to a built environment with both higher energy performance and lower carbon emissions. It's our hope that studies like this will lead to adoption of green construction methods and EDGE certification worldwide. Thank you again to IFC for organizing this event. I'm looking forward to hearing more about the proceedings throughout the day and to hearing all about the research conducted here in South Africa. We want to understand how this has supported our EDGE and MAGIC development, and we also are very interested to hear local perspectives. We're meeting with our partner banks, amongst others, and visiting sites where EDGE has been implemented. And we want to understand how this is boosting green development in South Africa. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Omid Saberi, and I'm very, very pleased to be here. I would be talking about edge impact for a second, but before doing that, a few things to say. One is that, as Michael said, I wish, I had the same history as you, Michael, to come back to the university that you are in. For me, Cape Town has been a very special place. We started, one of our countries where we started our program first was South Africa, and in Cape Town, our certification partner, Green Building Council of South Africa, we started the work here almost 10 years ago. And tomorrow we are celebrating 10-year anniversary of EDGE program. And we selected Cape Town because it's a very special place. And that's for me to say why we are here. And the research program for us is critical in the sense that we want to make sure what we are promising gets delivered to the end user. And that's really the heart of EDGE. We want to make sure the benefits are reaching the end users. That has been our key goal. I would not be too long. I will give you a quick overview of where we are now with EDGE globally and what we have done here in South Africa, thanks to our colleagues here in South Africa that driven this market. In principle, what we have done so far, which really for a program that is 10 years old is a major achievement. We have reached 124 countries of certified projects. So projects are being certified in 124 countries already. And as you see the dots on the map, from Asia, Africa, Europe, and North and South America, all around we have projects being certified. The number of projects globally has reached almost 11,000 projects. The value of these assets, Michael mentioned that we have financed $2.5 billion using MAGC funding as blended finance. And that is very unique because this is first time that a donor funding is reaching the banks and reaching the end users. And in last year in New York Climate Week, I was mentioning MAGC to many donors. I said, look, when we look at the funding from the donors, the people that they are in need, it feels like you're in a city that people, they need water, and there's a huge water tank somewhere, but there's no pipe connecting the water tank to the people. And people need the water, but for you to go to the tank and bring the water one by one, it's very difficult. The funding for MAGC is exactly like that, that we have the fund from the donor, we have IFC supporting the banks, so the NetBank, for example, or ABSO or other banks, funding comes to them. From there, then it goes to end users that they are applying for mortgages or construction, right? So that's how the funding is reaching end users and also other benefits like reduce energy costs, reduce water costs. In terms of floor area, we have certified 122 million square meter of projects around the world. We are hoping that we can, in the next 5 years, with the collaboration with UK government, we double these figures. And that is a possibility. In South Africa, and if you look at Africa in a whole, you would see that we have been increasing the number of certifications in different countries. When you look at the 26, the way that IFC measures the time, we measure each financial year from 1st of July. So you can see that FY26, we are almost 3 months in FY26. That's why the numbers in FY26 doesn't look in the same trajectory. But we are hopeful that 26 would be the same as 25 or even stronger. Across Africa, we have certified around 12 million square meters of projects, and majority of that comes from South Africa. Roughly around 7.2 million square meters of projects are from South Africa. But we are celebrating this with the hope that we can, again, double these figures with a collaboration of everyone in the room. So what we have done so far in South Africa, a bit in detail, roughly around 75,000 housing units are certified. And one of the interesting things that I remember when we came to South Africa early days, they said that the number of housing units built every year in South Africa is around 40,000. And we were hoping that we can get at least 20% share of those homes EDGE certified. And now the latest figures that we have in the market, we have around 18% of the new builds getting EDGE certified. And that's really good number. And our target is 20% market transformation. There has been also work. Lenore is here. Lenore has led the work for South Africa for last 7-8 years. We work with the government programs. So, for example, the work with government to train the different local governments, as well as engage with the C40 cities. We also work with the training programs, including training professionals and students on green buildings. This is a bit of detailed history of South African change in green buildings. IHS, we will hear from IHS later, our client, was our first investment in South Africa when we invested in IHS to do EDGE certified green rental housing. And it was interesting because when we did that work, almost nobody believed that this is going to work, right? Everyone was like, what is this? Why do we need to do this? I remember the first discussions that we had with the engineers here. They were like, you know, we don't do heating in our homes. Most of the homes, they don't have cooling. You know, where is the energy to save? Why do we need to save energy? And from those discussions, then when IHS did the projects, they realized that they can save up to 1 month of rent in their energy bills for the tenants. And that was a huge achievement. Later, we worked with Nedbank. Nedbank provided the first green social housing project in 2016. In 2017, we continued working, expanding beyond housing to other sectors like industrial. 2018, Baldwin Property came in, and they registered 13,000 homes to certify. That was the largest project globally in terms of the volume of the projects. And that continued to grow the market when ABSA joined to provide more green financing for those projects. And then we continued again with Nedbank and with the Standard Bank and other banks joining in. South Africa is now one of our top performing countries in the world in terms of green finance and green buildings. And we continue this journey as we go. So if we look at the principles of EDGE, we have been providing free software. Again, I remember when we came here the first time, I was telling Philippe on the road here that South African engineers were very tough. They were questioning us very tough questions of why, you know, how do you prove that the saving is really delivered? And we did a lot of research together to figure out, you know, the energy saving and what are the measures to save energy here. We kept the principle of 20% energy efficiency. We continued to make our versions more and more strict, the baseline more and more strict with version 1, version 2, and version 3, and continued to deliver the results. And hopefully the research program shows some benefits of what we have done. These are some of the samples of where the data is being collected. We will hear more details about this. But Baldwin Properties projects are one of the projects that have been selected for the research program. They have done roughly around 186,000 housing projects. They have already registered around 16 million square meters of projects, and they sold a record of 800 green homes in 1 month. So that's really showing that this is not only a research program or a green program, it's also benefiting the developers as well as end users. I'm not going to a lot more detail here. We will hear more details. The second, obviously, is IHS, International Housing Project, Housing Solutions. With IHS, we are also expanding the work to Kenya now, and we are hoping that IHS will continue to serve wider area in the continent as well. Our first investment was $25 million in 2015, and that still continues to bear fruit for the market. For those colleagues that are new to Edge, you can follow, you can look at the Edge website, you can look at the Edge YouTube channel. There's lots of YouTube videos about our program, and tomorrow in the 10-year anniversary, we are welcoming you to come and join us. Finally, I want to come back and thank Michael and the UK government for the support and trust in this program. That has really helped us to transform the market, and hopefully we continue doing this transformation together. Thank you, everyone, and I invite the next speaker. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Omid. So I'm going to give you a very quick overview of the MAGC Research program. So we have 5 work streams there. The first one is the stakeholder assessments. They assess the perceived motivations, decision-making criteria, obstacles related to green buildings among different types of market actors in 7 countries. That's work has been completed, and the publications can be found on the Edge website. If you have a flyer, the link is there. So please feel free to visit that website. We also have market maturity assessments to present and analyze green building market maturity information on different aspects of green building supply, green building certifications and standards, policy and regulations related to green buildings, access to finance, very important, capacity and skills, to then characterize the state of the market across 13 countries before and after the MAGC program. So we have 13 baselines in 13 countries completed. They are also up on the website, and we're now starting the work on the end lines, and that should be available by December 2026. Some countries earlier, others later. Good news is that South Africa is going to be earlier, so we're starting the work on that now. Then we have an embodied carbon study to expand the Edge materials database by calculating the embodied emissions in green and low carbon construction materials that are not currently in the Edge database. So that includes bamboo, timber, and green concrete and steel through life cycle analysis. That is ongoing, and the results should be available at the latest by May, June 2026. Then, as I mentioned, the centerpiece of the research program are the smart metering impact evaluation. They measure the actual water and energy consumption in green or Edge certified green buildings compared to conventional buildings and the Edge model in low and middle income residential areas in 3 emerging markets, Colombia, Indonesia, and South Africa. And then we have a cross-cutting component on disseminating results and outreach. So we generate and disseminate new knowledge and evidence on green buildings to internal and external stakeholders through events like this and different publications to increase awareness on green buildings and eventually motivate behavior change of different target audiences. Good. So now over to Simon Elam from University College London. Here are the slides.
Hi, thanks, Elaine. So I'm Simon Elam. I lead the Smart Energy Research Group at University College London, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the research design and the global context of the evaluation study that we're running. Okay, so we have a bunch of research questions for this study. So the primary research question is, to what extent do EDGE certified buildings deliver actual energy and water savings compared with the savings predicted by the EDGE model, and secondly, compared to conventional non-EDGE buildings? We've then got a bunch of secondary research questions where really we're delving in a bit deeper to the primary research questions. So we'll look at to what extent do savings vary between building types, over time, and between different green solutions that have been implemented. We'll then start to try and unpick a little bit about the causes of any observed variations we find in the savings. And finally, we'll then see what we can do with these results and these findings about increasing the accuracy of the model or increasing actual savings. Okay, so the analysis we're going to do to answer the research questions. So the primary research question, we're going to be comparing measured energy and water use between EDGE and non-EDGE residential units. And we're going to compare actual measured energy and water use with EDGE predicted consumption. Then we'll go into these kind of secondary questions and investigate any variations in results by country, region, location, over time, and for those main EDGE technologies that have been utilized. And we'll then try and identify any factors which might explain any of the observed performance gaps that we find. So site selection is really important for this study. So we've been working, and Grant's been working very hard with some of our colleagues from Borwood and IHS and other developers to get suitable EDGE residential sites, as well as matched comparison non-EDGE sites. So in terms of EDGE sites, what we're trying to get is a selection of sites covering the main urban locations of EDGE buildings, hopefully in different kind of climatic zones, different weather, that's really important. We'll have sites with different kind of key EDGE solutions in there for the energy and water savings. And we're looking at a range of different income bands for these residential units. And the comparison sites, we're really just trying to match the EDGE sites on those key variables. So things like location, income band, type of building, etc. And then finally, really importantly, that they're built close to the local base case building standards. Data collection. So again, a really key part of this study. So energy and water data are the really kind of key variables that we're trying to collect. That gives us the answer to or help us answer the primary research questions. So we're getting that from smart meter data mostly, particularly in South Africa. In some cases in the other countries where we have non-smart meters, we'll be doing kind of monthly manual readings. Second, we collect contextual data that helps us dive into the secondary research questions and allows us to control for some factors in the primary research question. So we've got a participant survey, which collects demographics, building and appliance characteristics, energy and water use behaviors and things like that. We've got EDGE reports and site inspections, which tell us about the building types, the energy and water saving technologies that have been employed at these sites. And we're also collecting kind of weather data because that has a big impact on energy use in particular. And finally, for a subset of our homes, we'll be, and the units will be putting in additional monitoring. So some sensor data to collect indoor temperature and humidity, and some additional monitoring where there's key EDGE technologies that need a bit extra. So particularly hot water in South Africa, and the range of different technologies like PV and things like that. The way they're implemented has given us quite a lot of complexity, and Grant might speak a little bit about the monitoring we're doing there. So we've got a two-stage study design, a pilot phase, which has now been completed in each country, where the objective here is really to learn and prepare for the main phase rather than actually try and answer the research questions. So we'll be trialing, or we have trialed all aspects of the study, and it's really about identifying problems and solutions for the main phase. The main phase we're just moving into now in each of the 3 countries. And that's the full implementation of the study where we're actually collecting the data to do the analysis to answer the research questions. So where we scale up. Okay, the geographic scope of the evaluation study. So the central research team, that's us at University College London. We're doing the kind of overall research design. And then we work with in-country teams in each of the 3 countries of South Africa, Colombia, and Indonesia. And the University of Cape Town are obviously leading the team in South Africa. So Grant's going to go into a lot more detail about the South Africa study. I'm just going to go a very quick overview about some of the key differences in the other 2 countries. So in Colombia, the kind of site archetype, so it's mostly low income and low middle income housing. So it's actually the least variance of the 3 countries, the 3 studies. It's mostly high-rise apartments, as you can see in the picture on the top right there. That's quite a typical residential site in Colombia. The units are sold as a shell. They've got like no flooring, no appliances, not any kind of plaster on the wall. You can see in that middle picture. So that gives us some complexities for our research because the occupants will come in and they might change kind of some of the technologies. They can even change the layout. They might have put in a second bathroom or something like that. So that gives us some complexities that we have to factor into our research. That's why we're doing some kind of extra building inspection type reports in Colombia to get a handle on that. Mains or piped gas is prevalent and metered, which is very useful for us, unlike South Africa, where it's mostly bottled gas canisters, which is unmetered, and so we have a bit of an issue around data collection there. And in terms of edge savings and the technologies implemented in Colombia, so in version 2, it's mostly from LED lighting. In version 3, in places like Bogota, where it's a little bit cooler, it's mostly from hot water. And unlike South Africa, where it's kind of PV and solar implementations of technologies, it's generally from more efficient inline gas water heaters in Colombia, which is you can see in that bottom picture. There's also things like low flow taps and shower heads, which contribute to energy savings and also to water savings. And finally, in other places like Santa Marta, so Santa Marta's in a much hotter, more humid climate. There you've got a lot of the energy savings are coming through the virtual cooling and passive design. And finally, in Indonesia, so the site archetypes, we've got the greatest income range of the 3 countries in Indonesia. So from very low to very high. So some real kind of super luxury apartment blocks at that high end. But in general, it's mostly landed houses rather than vertical apartment blocks in Indonesia. That's what their housing stock is generally. So that's quite different to the other 2 countries, which is mostly apartment blocks in Colombia and South Africa. These are the landed houses are often 36 square meters. That's a kind of standard size. That's because building regs say 9 square meters per person. It's assumed to have 4 occupants. Not always the case. Sometimes a bit more. And these landed houses you can see in the top picture there. So in the bigger ones, they could be standalone houses. But more often it's a little bit like this, which is like a terrace or a little block of 4 or 6 or 8 houses which are built adjoining each other. In terms of the edge savings, so hot water is almost non-existent. So unlike South Africa, where hot water is the main technology, it's almost non-existent in Indonesia in any houses because it's a hot country. And secondly, because they have a lot of bore water. So the water comes out quite warm from the taps anyway. So you can shower and wash in it quite easily. So most of the energy savings come from virtual cooling and passive design. So we can see in that middle picture that even these smaller and terrace housing. They have these small indoor courtyards, which helps with passive design. So it helps with the air circulation and cooling, and other things like the kitchen is actually outside on the back of the house. You can see in that bottom picture the sink and the cooker. It's just got a little bit of a roof over it to protect from rain. But obviously that helps. You don't generate any extra heat then from the cooking. That gets dissipated outside rather than inside. And you know, it's better for indoor air quality as well. So I think that's my last slide, and I will hand over to Grant to tell you about this.
Thanks, everybody. I'm Grant Smith. I'm from the University of Cape Town and the Energy Systems Research Group. We're based in chemical engineering. Although, as I delight to tell my economics colleagues, I am a trained economist, but I am a senior research officer in chemical engineering. I'll take you through the South African study very briefly. Of necessity, we can't dwell a lot, but please feel free to reach out. I think you'll have my contact details, or at least through the IFC. And we are, as academics are, we're happy to talk about the work. All right. So this is joint work with Richard Lamour from electrical engineering and Alison Hughes, also part of this group, and a mechanical engineer by training. Before I proceed, this is, as I think you'll come to appreciate very quickly, a large project. It is, in fact, the largest study of any sort of residential apartments at meaningful depth ever undertaken in South Africa's history. So thank you so much. But that requires a lot of partners. So in particular, we ran the pilot leaning very heavily upon IHS. Thank you, Blake, and Bowen. Thank you, Lloyd and Matthew. And that has now grown. So we thank Madula Moho, Growth Point, especially their Thrive portfolio, AfriCrest, Ali Rhodes, Real Growth, Caliber, AFCO have just joined in, the affordable housing company, as well as metering companies that have become very helpful partners to us, iPay, RMS, Blue Saddle Innovations, and especially Protea Metering have been integral. And to analyze and store all this data securely, responsibly, and still be able to run our analysis within feasible time limits, we do require quite significant computing architecture, which is resources which is supplied by our university's e-research department, so the supercomputing infrastructure. So thank you to all those people. In particular, I would just like to also say thanks to Simon. We've walked a long road. We actually met many years ago, and also in data-related things. The IFC, especially Elaine, and in his absence, Sandro Diaz Amigo, who's been with us, who was very integral in the initial phases of the study. So great to see it coming to fruition. I'll take you through some of the highlights from our pilot phase. As I said, for the sake of time, this is going to necessarily be short, but you feel free to reach out for more details. In the pilot, as Simon said, our main aim was to assess the methodologies for robustness for purpose. So could we use them to recover high quality data and to achieve identification of the edge effect if it was there. So we piloted collecting smart metering data. We did try manual read data, but that proved to be lower data quality. Smart meters generally report either water or electricity grid energy at 30-minute to 6-hour intervals. We also overlaid that with an apartment panel survey. This is to get access to reality behind the meter. So it may be a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment, but as one person living there, 3 people, 2 people, what's the income distribution, what's the employment status, how many people are at home, all of those sorts of things. So we trialed that, and because these things do change over time, we tried it as a panel, and we were successful in doing that. We had a very low intensity follow-up because we wanted to see, well, if we did nothing, how many people would come back, and about 40% did, so that was nice. And then we, as Simon intimated, both in our national building code, SANS 10400, XA and XA2, as well as in the EDGE tool itself, it is assumed that hot water production accounts for the largest single share of energy use by a household. I think SANS assumes roughly 50%. EDGE also has a very high rating to it. And so we were interested to assess how much energy and water is being used in these hot water production systems. So individual geysers in the households, in the apartments, as well as to have a go at seeing, well, what share of total household energy is this in fact? Here are just some overview results. As I say, I can only give you an overview. So our sample size, mainly these are these were in the pilot, that mainly these were 2 people households, some 1 person, a few 3 and 4 person households. Their income, primarily we're looking at households earning total monthly income of 20 to 40,000 Rand. So these are not poor households, they're not incredibly rich, but we do have some poorer households in the study, as you can see, as well as some quite rich. As Simon intimated, hot water production is very significant. This is just a schematic from the pilot study. We discovered a wide variety of hot water production strategies, and we have discovered even more now in the main phase. But you could have, okay. Hopefully I haven't run out of, no, I'm back. We just got a page up here. All right. When the economist speaks, even the computer gets bored and falls asleep. So we've got conventional geysers, we've got unit level heat pumps combined with geysers. Strangely enough, we've got a lot of centralized hot water production. We've got solar water heaters, we've got PV to geyser directly, and even some inline elements. The point of this slide is simply to say that there is a wide variety of solutions serving a very important, at least by hypothesis, single source of energy use. 3 illustrative results from the survey before we get to a slide that let us know that, well, it's worthwhile to continue this research. First is that economics, budget constraints in terms of income are important. So some households did not consume electricity because they simply couldn't afford it. Most were okay, but some simply could not top up their prepaid meter. So that let us know we've got to keep our eye on this basic economic question. Do you cook any meals at home using gas? And here we're not talking about centralized gas production. So some sites will route gas from a main these big gas tanks through a conventional gas mains infrastructure. What we're talking about here is a 9 kg or 5 kg individual gas LPG bottle. South Africa at the time of the pilot was undergoing intensive controlled supply interruptions of electricity or load shedding for the South Africans. And so a lot of households bought these personal gas bottles and used it for heating or cooking. And we see that in our sample. Now that load shedding has been gone for a year, and our unit, especially the head of our unit, Prof. Blotnitz, contends that we are structurally out of that now. So we've made our claim. And we do still think, though, that these bottles will be found in households, even although grid energy is back and reliable. Finally, and quite surprisingly, we found that there was a great behavioral gap in terms of how people were using these very well-designed units. In simplicity, what the slide shows is that some people used the technology as designed, but a lot did not. We can tell you stories. I don't have the time now, but it just goes to show that the engineering is mission critical. You can do nothing without the engineering in this, if this is your route to addressing sustainable residential development and the binding environmental constraints that we are bumping into more frequently. But you do need to include a human element. Folk are leaving welfare on the table by not using these things as designed. So we're keeping our eye on that. What did it look like from the pilot study? Please don't reproduce the slide. This is an extremely small sample, but on the left-hand pane, you'll have the non-edge housing stock, and on the right-hand pane, you have the edge housing stock. We do redo this calculation with square meter data, which we received later. So energy per square foot, per square meter, but I don't have that slide just now. But you will see that systematically non-edge apartments are consuming more grid energy than edge apartments. And so although this is not a robust finding, this is a small sample, about 122 apartments here, but there is a trend. Okay, as I move to a close, let me take you through the main phase. We have for the last while been in field with the main phase, and this is a three-way design. And as I say, this is not just a very in-depth assessment of edge itself, but it's also the largest single in-depth study of residential apartments in South Africa's history. So we are collecting big metering data from now 120 sites across South Africa. This is half-hourly to 6-hourly interval data of water and grid energy. In some cases, we have hot water and cold water coming through separate data streams. Initial analysis through the pilot phase of the smart energy reporting indicates that it's high fidelity data. There are some gremlins, but largely these can be overcome. We also have payment. We know when people pay, how much they pay, and largely they're paying through prepaid electronic wallet, so we can see what their active balance is at any time in the month. And so this allows us to recover with consumption moderates. Is this basically because the electronic wallet is nearing zero or was at zero. So these are very important. We recover things like price elasticities and all sorts of interesting things. We also marry that with building data, so materials used, sort of square meters, all that sort of stuff. At roughly 10% sample of our big sample, and sorry, the sample is eThekwini, but mainly Gauteng and Cape Town. So it's eThekwini, Gauteng, Cape Town. And it ranges from social housing, so where people receive subsidies to allow them to pay very, very low rents, through to affordable housing as defined in South Africa's legislation and policies, through to lower middle income, upper middle income, and premium. We have certainly some Bourne apartments are very premium, but we cover the whole range. 10% of those households are surveyed, those apartments are surveyed twice, once this year, once again next year. We are in field with that at the moment, and just see the results. Those surveys are married to the metering data. And then a very small sample receives especially intensive additional metering, especially of their geysers, indoor temperature and humidity, and of their gas infrastructure. I think I've just told you about the sites survey, so I'm going to skip this slide. And I believe, Elaine, over to you and maybe questions. Yes.
So we'll have about 10 minutes for some Q&A. So we have 2 mics here. Any questions? Okay.
So, hello to everyone. Thank you for your presentations. I'm glad to be here. I think I'm the only one from South America. I'm from Uruguay. So it's my first time in Cape Town. It's a pleasure to meet you. A lot of people that I already met, but through the computer. So I have a question, I don't know, for the program itself, about how did you select the non-edge projects? And just a little bit of context. In my country, we have now like 15 edge certified projects. I also work in Bolivia and in Paraguay and in Peru. I had the opportunity to work in several South American countries. And as an edge expert and as an edge auditor, also an edge faculty. And I did plenty of initial edge assessments for residential and non-residential projects that they didn't have the opportunity to go through the certification because they didn't achieve, for example, materials. okay? But they were good, or very good at energy consumption. Particularly in Uruguay, we have, like, I think we have good construction code considering the thermal efficiency. Depends on the second department or province of a country. So I think we have a pretty good base case, actual base case. So if, any question, if I was ordering to select non-edge projects, maybe I can have better energy efficiency non-edge than edge project. I don't know if the question is understood. Thank you very much again.
Yeah, so great question, probably a central question to the project. In South Africa, that is simplified by our building code, so SANS 10400XA and XA2, that do establish a high limit, a very stringent limit, or a high standard in terms of green performance. So we select on date of construction, compliance with our code, and then geographic area. For practical reasons, we select on they must have smart metering just to allow us to look up the data. Taking those things together, though, you do find that in all other respects, those developments, if they're smart metered, they're built at a similar time, they are compliant with our building code, they are in almost all respects the same as an edge development, but they do not have the edge certification and they'll lack some of the particular edge technologies. I don't know, that's what South Africa done.
I think that's more or less the same in the other countries, but I very much take your point. It's one of the things that we are going to have to account for and control for in our analysis. Is that some of, that's why we spend quite a lot of time. Actually, it's more difficult getting the non-edge, the comparison sites on the edge, right? Because you're trying to make sure that they are close to that base case, the building regs, and not, effectively edge, but without a certificate. Yeah, so that's the problem. And it's even more of a problem when we have some of the older sites, because they were probably close to, so we might have had an edge, version 2, and then a kind of comparable non-edge comparison site. But that could have had some retrofit, and probably will have had some retrofit since that over time. So actually it was, at the time, it was a good base case and a good comparison. But now that non-edge site has been brought up to a greater energy efficiency, so it's closer to edge. So there's a whole bunch of stuff a bunch of complexity there that we need to unpick when we do the analysis, and we'll have to try and control for that with some of the analysis we do, because I very much take your point that these comparison sites over time are becoming more like edge.
Hi, I'm David Dominguez from Mexico. We are the first premier edge provider in the country, and we participate in the certification process of more than 30,000 residential units, mostly in Mexico. So what we have there, for example, is that the millennial community and the Z generation who are already purchasing homes, they're kind of aware and familiar with these technologies, like having photovoltaics, solar panels, that kind of stuff. So I wanted to ask you, for the final users, was there any reluctance to use new technologies, and did they change their mind after seeing how their homes behave for a certain time?
I don't think we really cover that in the research that we're doing. I think you're saying that, so if the occupants are making changes in their behaviors or their technology, we'll try to capture that in the business surveys. And if there's slightly diversify the question. So, for example, one of the big things in South Africa has been we spent a lot of time trying to work out how behaviors and implementation of technology by the has changed So there are two things. One is, we spent an awful lot of time trying to work that out in the pilot phase, and now load shedding is not existing, so it's but the other thing is, if these behaviors and technology implementation are more or less the same between edge and non-edge sites, then it doesn't really impact our analysis and our study. But, and that's, we did spend a lot of time could there be quite a skew between what happens in edge and non-edge because of the way that the buildings are built, or because of the way that they're managed and how occupant behavior and what they can do to their units is a little bit different. So that is definitely one thing that we are trying to control for and account for in our research. And we do that mostly through the participant surveys that help us unpick how occupants are changing, the technology is changing their behavior.
One follow-up is we move to the next thing, which is, I was going to say, this is a question really for the developers, and you'll hear from two of them about now. But so we get to know the developers fairly well, and even at the site level. And the developers, the biggest thing, at least in our context, trying to get increased operational efficiencies. And so they'll experiment with different ways of delivering water or something else. And that may result in a mid-study retrofit to a site. And fortunately, because the administrative data, their invoices, their plans, we have sight of that. But yeah, so that's how it's But I think, Elaine, you're helping us moving to the next thing, I think.
Questions on the research path? Yes, I think we do have a couple of minutes.
Good afternoon, my name is Nuru. I'm an architect and edge expert. I'm based in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Tanzania is a new and upcoming country that we're just now beginning to encourage more clients to register and accredit their buildings with edge. My question actually is to the donor and the UK government. I don't know where he is. What is the criteria for picking a country to be involved in this research? And why don't you also look into smaller countries that are emerging, like our countries, that so much is going on at the moment, but we are struggling on ourselves to bring the awareness. And I think if you look into that, it will help us a lot to get these. I don't know if it's the reluctance of the government, I don't know, because we face a lot with clients, but we're trying. And I don't know if it's something you can look at. This is an appeal to IFC and the UK government to include us in this research.
It's a great question. And, as I'm closest to the mic, I'll try and give the donor's perspective first. If we could do it in every country, we definitely would. Well, I guess that sounds a bit flippant, but it's not really. Start with us as an international donor, where we have we have two guiding things. We have our foreign relations strategy combined with our emerging markets and emerging market climate strategy. And we have to prioritize. Our donor funding goes to every emerging market, but if we were to cover every emerging market with every program, it wouldn't work, it would be too thin. So we have our strategy, we have our priority countries. It happens that South Africa is one of our, I forget now, 9, 10 dozen priority countries, and we have the next list. We're certainly in Tanzania. I myself know Dar a little from renewable energy work, but I guess the real answer is twofold. You can't do everything everywhere. And secondly, I've already taken note of that, so let's take it back and discuss that. I wonder, Ahmed, all your colleagues, whether you'd like to sort of add the IFC layer to that.
No, thank you. And I think, first of all, thank you for raising this, because this is important for our donors to hear. And from our perspective, I think it's really important to first of all, bring the investments. So we spoke, we already have one investment in Tanzania, and we are hoping to increase the number of investments to bring the links. Having yourselves as edge experts and auditors is really important, having more people be aware of the process. But I think this is not this is just the start of the journey. Hopefully we can expand to different countries, and with the support of the UK government and other donors, we continue delivering the results. But I think we hear you, and we will continue to progress this process together. Thank you.
Hi, actually, I did have a question, but I think that your question I'd rather park my question because I think yours was quite important. Okay, okay, let me just, hi everyone. First of all, just welcome to everyone who is flying into South Africa. So as a South African, it's nice to have you all here. I did want to just honor her question because I'm actually accredited as a climate negotiator going into COP30, specifically looking at Article 9, which is climate finance, and specifically for the least developed countries. So I do want to just take a moment to honor Tanzania, who is the chair of the Africa Group of Negotiators this year. Thank you to IFC for your response. I guess I'll ask my question, which is a little bit similar to that. There was a comment about biomaterials, so I'm an edge expert, and specifically looking at a lot of projects that use rammed earth and, limestone and other biomaterials. So what were some of the findings that you found from a performance perspective between the conventional materials and then looking at the biomaterials, because I think that that's something that a lot of the least developed countries are looking at as well. So I will ask my question after all. Thanks, Owen.
Yeah, so unfortunately this study is looking at the energy and water use from occupied, obviously actual occupied performance. We're not doing anything on the embodied carbon, and that's another study which maybe Elaine, you can say where the status of that part of the study is, but what we are going to do is we're not looking at that. That's a slightly different thing. We'll be looking at energy performance and building climate, but I don't think we're going to break it down into things like the materials and building structure and what it's made of. As I said, I think that would fall very much into a slightly separate. There were like 5 projects and studies on a later slide at the beginning, and that has an aspect that falls into one of the other research projects.
Right, so 2 things. One is that great to hear that you're going to COP. This is really important. We didn't talk about this, but actually building sector is the most difficult part of climate action. And if we can do something on the building sector, and unfortunately, there's a lot of talk everywhere, right? People, they talk about things, but delivering results is important. And hopefully you guys can be the ambassadors to talk about this at COP and explain to others to join this movement. On materials, your points in terms of rammed earth and other products, this is really important. I was talking to David this morning about other products for steel and concrete or more natural materials. We are doing a study on embodied carbon right now with another part of the research program. The results are starting to come out, but we already have rammed earth in Edge version 3. We're hoping that we refresh that study to have better studies. In Edge version 4, we are changing our materials embodied processes to align it with RICS whole life cycle cost, and that really then changes the perspective of the developers on understanding how these materials having a life cycle benefit from embodied carbon point of view, and hopefully that will help us more to move toward natural materials.
Thank you. Okay, so we are ready for our next presentation from Matthew Wally from Bowen, please. So please.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we heard from a civil engineer who became a financier, then an economist who pretends to be an engineer, and I'm going to hear from an aeronautical engineer pretending to be a developer. So, yeah, I'm going to go through Bullman's Edge journey, tell you a little bit about what Bullman's done, give you some more up-to-date numbers that Mohammed had in his presentation, which I think is just good news, and tell you a little bit about, well, answering 3 questions: what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. So, let me talk a little bit about Bull Properties. For anyone who's South African, you probably know who we are. For those of you from an international audience, Bull Properties is a sectional title property developer. We specialize in 4-story walk-ups, which we build within lifestyle estates, normally of around 1,000 to 2,000 apartments, contained within blocks of between 12 and 14 apartments. And here is an example of one of the estates that we've built, which is quite a significant estate, so I'll get to that next time. But Bull Properties, as a developer, our leadership has always had 2 main focuses: looking after our clients, and then more recently, as it's become more obvious that this is critical, building sustainability and being a sustainable developer. Not just in the sense of environmental sustainability, but providing a home to someone that they can live in and they can sustainably live in. So this photo is of a development up in Johannesburg. It's called Polo Fields. And the reason why it's the start of my presentation is that's the first project that Bullman got Edge certified. Ironically, very, very different to anything that we did since then. Back to 2019-2020, we did our first bulk registration, which I alluded to, which was 13,000 apartments. By 2021, we had 5,000 preliminary certificates. 2021, we discovered there's Edge Advanced. And when our CEO discovers there's something better than what we're doing, that then becomes what we are doing. So from that point onwards, there's a commitment we're going to do Edge Advanced certification on everything that we build. By 2022, we had 10,000 preliminary certificates. That was a combination of some of the early ones being just Edge and some Edge Advanced. By 2023, we hit 10,000 Edge Advanced preliminary certificates, and we hit 20,000 overall certificates. And then 2024, we started getting our post-construction certificates. 2,500 in 2024. We will have, and why there's an asterisk there, by the end of this year, we'll have over 10,000 post-construction Edge certificates. And you can see, as we said at the moment, we have 27,000 prelim certificates, nearly 28,000 prelim certificates, and nearly 9,000 post-construction. We've got nearly 40,000 apartments that are registered to be Edge certified. And I think based on the stats you presented earlier, we now are about 4.5 to 5 million squares, so we're about 4% of global Edge certification is coming from Bull Properties, which we're very proud of. So what I wanted to do now is just go through a few pictures, show you the different products that we build, just to show that a green building is not necessarily what people think of when they think green building. We tend to think of something like this as a real showcase of what a green building is. And it doesn't have to be, as long as you're committed to doing it from the start. Those of you who are Edge experts will probably be able to spot some of the things just from the architecture. But this is another Johannesburg site. This is the Reed, also one of our earlier projects that did Edge. There's actually a picture in on this presentation. This is Greenleaf, also Johannesburg. This was our more affordable brand that we launched, which the goal of this was to have an apartment under 500,000 Rand. It's now a bit more than that for the one bed, but that's where it started, so around $25,000-ish for an apartment. Then, in Yaka, this is just us showing off, I suppose. It doesn't look like a green development at all. Where we built our massive lagoon and our massive lifestyle center, also all Edge Advanced, and proudly say that this lagoon, as much as huge body of water, terribly not sustainable, all sustainable water, recycled water used to fill it, done in actually an incredibly sustainable way. Just an example of somewhere else in the country, this is down in KwaZulu-Natal, one of our more premium products. And yeah, just showing that we're getting it across different price brackets, different locations. And because we're in Cape Town, I haven't shown you anything from Cape Town. I apologize for that. Anyway, so how do we go about achieving Edge Advanced? Our goal is to get everything to that level, and I'm assuming if you're here, you know what that means, but I'm going to say it anyway. Edge Advanced, 20% reduction in embodied energy, 20% reduction in water use during operation of the building, and a 40% reduction in energy consumption. And that has been the standard that we have worked through already. So how do you do it? You start with the design. And I think this is something that very often people who are trying to get to green building miss. It's not about throwing technology at the problem, it's about coming to it with a good design, which we've got some excellent consultants in the audience. I see all of our consultants here. They really help to make it so that the design is right, therefore the building is right. After that, then there's an energy optimization process. So then it's looking at what is being put into the building. How do we make that as energy efficient as possible? And then we start throwing technology out, which generally in South Africa is embedded generation. Things like solar PV primarily. Yeah. And then what fits very nicely in what we're talking about now is you measure to see if what you put in is doing what you think it's doing. And you can then cycle it back to the point where you can see, does it work? What can we do to make it better? And once you do all of that, you go through that iterative process, you achieve an Edge Advanced. It does require commitment from the developer. We're very fortunate that the CEO of Ball Properties is wholly committed to this, doesn't take no for an answer. I do sometimes feel sorry for our professionals who come up with perfectly rational arguments for why something's not possible, and then get told to do the impossible. So, to give you an idea of what Baldwin's done and the data that we're using, because the research that Branch's team is doing, the research that Saul and his team have done for us at UCT separately, it's aligned with what we were doing anyway. We've done a lot in the green building space, and here we've just highlighted a couple of things. So we've got 10 6-star rated lifestyle centres. That is a certification from the Green Building Council of South Africa, a bit more in depth than Edge, really designed to be a showcase building, kind of like this, of what is world leadership in green buildings. We've got 10 of those on our developments. We then have our head office up in Johannesburg. If any of you go to Johannesburg, I'd encourage you to go see that building. It was the highest rated green building as built in South Africa when it was certified. And then, as you see, we've got over 20,000 Edge certified partners. Now, what's very helpful for Grant, and I think he's very grateful that we're very much on board with him, is everything is smart metered. And we're not just saying that the apartments are smart metered, the common property is smart metered, the solar is smart metered. The bulk is smart metered. If we've got any sort of lifestyle centre, which would be like a clubhouse on it, everything there is smart metered. And more recently, a lot of our geysers are smart metered, so we know how much energy people are using to heat water. That makes a huge difference to us, and it means that we can start doing a lot to see if what we're doing works, as well, importantly, of engaging with clients. Because I think one element of green building which is often missed is clients don't understand it. And there's a lot of engagement that's needed towards clients to help them understand it. There's something that Magic program is fantastic for, because as soon as they see the cash in their bank, why am I getting this, start to learn about it, and start to go further with that. But it's a lot of data. Turning that data into information is why we need research like what UCT is doing. There's so much we can do as industry, but really diving into the details of it is something that these dedicated research projects are looking for. Just an example of something that was done, this is we know this is for a Green Star building, but going and designing something to be net zero. How do we ensure that our loads are modeled? How do we know when we're using different things? We can get that data and we can model it quite accurately and show that we are achieving net zero energy consumption on a building. And there's a Cape Town site. So this is actually a site, Sunset West. I was there this morning. Lovely site, flooded from last night's rain. And you can see some of the elements. You can see there are solar PV carports there, but you generally have the same measures. So then the research. Why are we doing it? This is an example of a piece of research that was done by UCT using primarily our data, and it's exactly why we are doing this. This was a piece of research that was done to say, do green buildings actually benefit the client? Because if the green building is not benefiting our client, while it's great, it's looking after the environment, if it's not benefiting our client, why are we really doing it? If the person at the end is not benefiting, why is that being done? So it's actually, when I said this was an Impact Plus recently, I think it's about a year ago now. Hopefully, Saul is going to be published internationally soon, research on it. And just a very high-level highlight of the savings that they saw from the research, because this is significant. This is the sort of thing we've been wanting to go out to the market and say, live in one of our edge-certified apartments because you're going to get these benefits. But if a developer tells you that their apartment is better than someone else's, no one's going to believe that. We needed this to be from a third party that's done the research, it's peer review. We can now quite happily claim it. So, just to give you an idea of that, I mean, 8,200 Rand a year that you're saving in a 3-bedroom apartment just because you're living in something that's had the environmental sustainability. That is a month's rent. Well, maybe not the 3 bedroom, but it's close to a month's rent. It's a really significant impact on the bottom line. And I do encourage any of you who are on the economist side, any of the financial side, read this research paper. Really excellent because it goes far beyond just the numbers that we as board want to tell our clients. It goes into what the real application of that is, and it's a fantastic piece of research. Then on to the other part of it, not just the savings that people have because of utilities, the other incentives. So, because this is Magic, I've chosen to focus on the other incentive that we've done because we've heard a lot about Magic. We are in love with Magic. Our CEO is trying to change the way we do our certification process completely to get a greater benefit from it. But I'm going to actually speak about something that was done separately, which was mentioned on this presentation as well, which was the green mortgages that were started with AXA, with Baldwin, and has now gone to most of the South African banks. And that was kind of linked to this whole idea that it's lower risk for someone living in a green certified apartment because they have more disposable income because they're not spending as much on utilities and so on. And just to give you the idea, 456 million Rand worth of savings because of reduced interest rates just on the Baldwin portfolio through this green mortgage incentive. That's a real quantifiable benefit going into the South African economy. Something we're very proud of and something we really push to get more banks involved in, and we're always pushing to get the banks to increase that incentive, especially now that we're Edge Advanced, not just Edge. So yeah, that's really what we're doing. Is we're committed to it because yes, we're sustainable developer. Yes, we want to be responsible, but there are real measurable benefits, and we're going to continue to be committed to it as a result. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Blake Bowden. I'm from National Housing Solutions, and just wanted to share a little bit of our perspective today on our Edge journey. It started in 2015, November, 11th of November. There's a picture of Omid and the guys holding the first Edge design certification for our Ravenswood development out in Johannesburg. So it's been an incredible journey for us to partner with the IFC to deliver this fantastic product to the South African market. We also stepping out, we in Namibia, Botswana, and Kenya as well. So we're really excited to be able to take this product to Africa, and we're happy to partner with developers, architects, out in the rest of the continent to further advance green buildings and climate resilience. IHS's perspective on Edge. Edge, for me personally, is more like a Google Maps for green building. What am I saying? You know, it's not the end goal, but at least there's a means to an end. You don't have to get lost along the way. You know the target, you know what you're going after, and you can achieve that by implementing those interventions. So just a little bit about International Housing Solutions. We established in 2005, and we've had a long partnership with DFIs, IFC, KfW, the German bank, EIB, and to deliver sustainable, climate resilient, resource efficient residential developments. What's really, really exciting to us, the last point there, is that we target affordable to low income households. 85% of all of our stock is targeted to affordable and low income households. We've delivered over 13,000 EDGE registered design and post-construction certified units, and we've completed about 31,000 units in sub-Saharan Africa. So really, Matthew's given us a nice picture on what we can achieve with EDGE. We're trying to balance the two. We're trying to achieve a social impact as well as achieve a climate impact. And we're trying to bring those together. And sometimes it's difficult, there's tension, there's a lot of price pressure. So we're really focused on what interventions are going to give us the value for money to get that money back into the tenant's pocket. So what is affordable housing in the South African context? That's really housing that's entry level that can achieve a mortgage bond. And that's adjusted annually by CPI and the building cost index. The guys in Stellenbosch produce a report every year, and you put those two together, get a midpoint, and you escalate that affordable housing, the FSC limit they call it. For 2025, that's 34,400 Rand a month gross, okay? If you work on a present value formula, assuming 30% of your gross income is used for housing, you've got an annual interest rates of 10.5%, and you take it over a 20-year period. That for 2025, your affordable housing limit is 1.03 million Rand. That's the ceiling price. Gap housing goes up to about 22,000. How's it, Sean? Gap housing goes to about 22,000. So basically between 22 and 34, that's your affordable housing space. But I must note, in January 2025, Stats SA came out with a report, and they looked at the income and expenditure of our country for 2022, 2023, and they actually found that the median point, the middlemost point in our country, the gross income is actually 7,980 Rand a month. That means that half of our country can only afford 2,400 Rand for rental. So there is a big gap that we have to solve for, and it's us in the room jointly that can provide solutions to this local economic issue. I'm not going to go through this in detail, but some of our typical EDGE interventions are listed there. Really for us, we found that if we combine a geyser controller, some people call it a robot, with the off-the-shelf geyser, that's the most cost-effective solution that we can come up with for hot water heating. So we put about 3 panels. Back in the day it was 3, now it's come down to 2 with the higher wattage. But you just connect that straight to your geyser with the controller, and you get the benefits of the sun heating your water during the daytime. And that's really cost efficient for us. Water, I think, is pretty simple. We're going for low flow. And then on the material side, we try and bring in some pre-cast, hollow core slabs. That also increases your construction time and brings down the cost. At IHS, we're building for impact. And if you can't measure, if you can't manage what you can't measure. So we've been measuring from August 2017, when we first received our post-construction for the Ravenswood development. That's over an 8-year period. We're measuring on a monthly basis water and electricity usage across 19 developments to date: Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, Ballito, and Nelspruit. And I've got some graphs for us, some data. This is basically from Q1 2022. And we can see on the electrical side, so your yellow sort of line there is basically your savings as a percentage. On the left-hand side, that's the kilowatt hours per unit per month. And basically, we're averaging about 30 to 35% saving across our portfolio. This is measured over about 5,300 units. You can see there, if anyone noticed what's happening in Q2 and Q3, a large number of our units sit in Cape Town, and that's the winter month. So you can see the dip happening there, popping back up in the summertime, basically mirroring what the weather patterns are doing in the country. On the water side, performing very strong. We're achieving just under 50% consistently over the portfolio. And we're going to bring these two in, and that's what actually gets us this combined saving that we're talking about. If we look at that across our portfolio, those are the 19 projects there, we're looking at just about 500 Rand per unit per month. Over 12 months, that's 6,000 Rand back into the tenant's pocket. Those guys at the 800 Rand mark are just under 10,000 Rand back into their pocket after a year, which is substantial for this market that we play in. Some of our impact by numbers. So we've achieved 6,850 post-construction. So obviously there's phases, there's registration, then there's design, and then there's post-construction, which is basically your as-built certificate. And we measure not only our climate targets, but we also measure some social targets as well. And with those 6,850 units, we've created about 17,000 person years of employment or full-time equivalents. On an annual basis, you're saving 600,000 kiloliters of water on that portfolio. You're saving 7.8 million kilowatt hours of electricity, and you're saving 40 million Rand a year on those developments, just over $2 million US. Sustainability is embedded, but not only environmental, but also social and economical. And I just wanted to bring this in. You know, EDGE helps IHS position ourselves as an attractive impact investee with clear SDG targets. And EDGE aligns primarily with SDG 11, and that's sustainable cities and communities, which promotes access to adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services. But coupled with that, we're getting clean and affordable energy, we're getting responsible consumption and production, and clear climate goals attached to that as well. So that's it for me. Thank you guys so much. I saved you 5 minutes, but happy to take any questions.
So we have at least 10 minutes for Q&A with our developers before we head to the food.
How's it? How you guys doing? So my question is around the sectional title moving to full title, because I know you guys love the edge on the sectional title, but now when you go to full title, how are you guys going to do the monitoring? Because from the South African market, most clients like to retrofit and change everything. So what is going to be the model for the full title? And I know you guys have started on the full title construction. How was the change from the edge side? Because I saw all the things that you guys have done on the retrofitting of your sectional title stuff, but now with the full title, are you changing design, or how's that going about?
I think I'll take that. Yeah, so we've got some full title developments in this portfolio that we're actually monitoring as well. So that's a single story. We do about 4 typologies, ranging from about 45 square meters for a 2-bed up to about 70 for a 3-bed. And basically, we're putting the interventions in. We're giving the homeowner his development with his EDGE certificate, and we're saying, if you would adhere to what we've installed for you, because that was all CapEx, you're going to continue getting that saving. So I think therein lies the incentive to keep things as they are. Monitoring is a little bit more difficult. Sometimes you've got some analog meters there. There are ways and means to get around that by installing some sensors on the analog that will send back, so we can do a sample size of the unit. That's what we're trying to do in cell courts, in Springs at the moment. So we're going to pop that in, get those owners to sign some sort of consent that we can continue monitoring even once we've exited the development in a full title scheme. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just a little
cool.
bit. So that's any new one that do not work for the smart metering already, so that at least that's there, or is it?
So what we're finding the challenge is some municipalities, because now they're billing directly, it's not 1 meter at the bulk system. They have to get individual meters. Some of them are prohibiting us from installing smart meters because it goes against their building standards. Some may call it a syndicate in disguise as well, because they actually supply the meters themselves. The municipality has these subcontractors that supply. So there is a challenge there, and that's why we're saying to get over that hurdle, we'll install what they're providing, and include some telemetry to be able to send the data back to IHS for continued monitoring.
Sorry, last question. Just because you both develop inland and coastal, right? I just wanted to ask, what is the difficulties, and is there like a cost difference from a Gauteng project to a Western Cape or to a KZN where it's a lot more humid? Oh yeah, besides the land, exactly, yeah, besides the land.
Well, that was my answer. I mean, in terms of the actual structure that's being built, there doesn't tend to be a major difference in what's being done. The same design tends to work. There are some differences that need to be taken into account. Notably, I think probably the biggest impact on this sort of things is renewable energy or solar PV doesn't work as well in KwaZulu-Natal. So that's a simple example, but in general, we don't see a major difference. What we're building tends to translate quite well between the different areas. The differences are your normal construction differences. It's not edge specific.
Have you considered any Edge Zero Carbon certification for any of the developments?
So for Baldwin, it's a very good question. The answer is yes and no. I think an important thing which I didn't maybe make clear, Baldwin is build and sell. So we don't maintain ownership and rent out the households, whereas IHS is very much more on that rental side, which makes the net zero as a operational rating a lot more difficult to achieve because we've handed it over. It's no longer under our control while we still may monitor it. We are launching a rental portfolio. We launched it end of last year, and it is something that we have considered for that. I mean, having the Edge Advance sets us up very nicely to go for it.
Harry from Lotnus, University of Cape Town. Big focus on water heating. What's the second biggest energy user in your portfolio?
So water heating definitely is the highest. Thereafter, probably cooking, electrical cooking. I mean, any form of heating tends to be there. The challenge that we have is while we may know the energy consumption from the geyser, we may know the energy consumption from direct stove oven, we don't necessarily know what's been plugged into the plugs. So it does make it a little bit difficult to give you an answer. I suspect it's heaters. I mean, it's that in winter coming from the plugs, it's probably heaters, but we can't definitively say that.
Yeah, I think exactly the same. It's the cooking that comes second to that. And yeah, we don't have a lot of gas in our developments, just because we've installed that right up front. We're selling the electric stoves. We've got some supplier sort of incentives with big large suppliers, but yeah, I think cooking is second to that, and yeah, we'll just try and I think just get some more efficiencies more. I think what we want to try to target a lot more is the passive design measures, to try and get that unit feeling comfortable, from a passive design point of view. Don't have to put in any ceiling fans, don't have to bring in AC, just get some natural ventilation going through. So we're really focusing a lot on the passive design, making sure the insulation's good. But yeah, other than that, it's the hot water and it's the cooking.
Hi everyone. Yeah, my name is Justin Delahant and representing Clay. We make clay bricks out here towards Stellenbosch side, and we've actually been part of a number of projects for Edge certification. So we're one of the few clay brick manufacturers that are perforating clay bricks 25% and up, and we've developed a clay block doing 40%. So first of all, well done to you guys. It's amazing what you're doing with these certifications. Really sounds like you've come a long way. And my question to you, Matthew, are you guys seeing a marketing angle? Well, obviously you do, but are you seeing tangible benefits where you can charge a bit of a premium for the clay or green building? Because we've seen in some aspects we aren't able to achieve that premium even though we've got a greener product. So how do you guys measure that at Baldwin? Thanks.
That's a good question. That's $1 million question. And I'd say no, we're not able to charge a premium because the building is green.
but we're able to give a better product at the same price because the building's green. And that's why things like those operational statistics are so important, because it makes the apartment easier to sell rather than making you get a higher price for it.
Because we're holding some rental stock, we're able to get better escalations because people actually want the EDGE certified development. Because I've stayed in it now, I know that my electricity bill is, getting reduced by 20-30%. I actually want to stay in an EDGE certified development. So you are seeing the market sort of cotton onto that, and the rental market, at least in our portfolio, are starting to demand EDGE certified, just to reduce the utility bills.
I mean, I can maybe even add further onto that, because that's just like that as well. Client retention, even on the build and sell side, is relevant. I'm hoping most of you would have seen the Baldwin launched probably 6 months ago now, maybe a bit more, what we're calling Baldwin Approved, which is resales of Baldwin apartments, where we go and check that it is still up to the right standard, and then resell it for someone who's buying another apartment with the Baldwin portfolio. And we do see a lot of resales within the Baldwin portfolio because the EDGE side of it is definitely a part of that.
Please, can I add to his question? Maybe I didn't understand it. We, in our parts of the world, it's when developers are just not doing it, it's so hard to crack that nut, to crack this shell. And I'm very grateful to hear developers are doing it. And my question will be, and sorry if I did not understand properly, the construction cost per square meter between non-EDGE and EDGE buildings, is there a difference? And if there is a difference, how then do you sell your buildings at a higher cost and yet to get that market? Maybe I didn't get it right, sorry.
So yeah, the cost of green building is something that is very relevant. It's something that is regularly looked at, and it's very regularly studied by things like Green Building Council, and the Green Building Council of South Africa publishes a report annually on it. I think people think the cost of doing green building is a lot higher than it is. What we've found is most of the measures that you need to do to achieve an EDGE certified building is just what we believe is a good building. So we don't see that as a premium. And then what is actually a premium, I mean, maybe a couple of % on a building, if that, which means the same you're going to be paying for marketing on something. So you've got something that's a real good market, real good story with real data behind it to show that there's a benefit to it. It's an easy sell. But in general, we haven't really seen as much of a premium. The reason being, from day one, when a development is planned, we're committed, we're going to build it as an EDGE development. Most of the cost can be eliminated through good design. That I think is the key take.
Maybe I can just assist here as well. So we're seeing anything between 0.5% to 2.5% on the construction cost. In Kenya, it's at about 3%. Happy to share some data there. Obviously, a newer market. I think on the African continent, they're second to South Africa, so it's gaining a lot of traction. I think Tanzania can take from those learnings. I'm assuming a similar building standard, but happy to share some data across after this year.
Any final questions to our developers?
Hi, my name is Yolanda. It's more of a comment, actually, rather than a question. Thank you so much for sharing what you've shared today. I think I'm producing this coming from a very interesting point. I've previously worked as a development manager, so very much in construction, and I've recently transitioned into the bank, or back into the banking sector, working with affordable housing, and especially green building, and I've opted with my team to champion the adoption of green building in South Africa moving forward. To the researchers, it would be so amazing and so great if there could be research that covers or includes small to medium-sized developers, because of a lot of the time, especially having worked for a small or medium-sized developer, you see your IHSs, you see your Baldwins, and you feel very like, oh, that is so big, they have so much behind them, they can do it. But I think if there was representation as I don't know, including one company, for example, where it seems achievable, that would help a great deal. Another thing that I've noted is that you seemingly are providing information with regards to your stats. Thank you so much for that. I know I'll be one using them to share with small and medium-sized developers to show and to illustrate that there isn't that much friction between having a conventional building and a green building. It just, as you said, starts from design. Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe I can just respond to that as well. I mean, the whole purpose of Edge coming to the South African market, through IHS, through Baldwin, was to catalyze the market, was to get the small, medium enterprises in. And there are programs, there's MAGC, there's green bond facilities at Nedbank, we get some incentives back if you're building with Edge. There are these things, Standard Bank had it, ABSA had it, Nedbank had a piece. So I think it's about getting yourself out there as a developer, saying that you're committing to a sustainable development, and then seeing what doors can open on your side. Yep.
Yeah, completely agree. And I think both IHS and Baldwin have always been, yes, while we were first movers and we have the scale to do that, the point is to show others how to do it. And we've never been cagey with data on how to achieve it. We want this to be the entire market embracing it because we've seen the benefit of it. For the clients, they're going to get better buildings as a result.
Just a 30-second response. I wholeheartedly agree on the small to medium-sized developers. We have at least 2 of them in the current research project, Calibre and Real Growth. So Real Growth has a portfolio of 4. Calibre, I think, is only 1 site. They've got a bigger portfolio, but 1 site is eligible for our study. So hopefully there's something that we can learn, and of course it's all public. Second, connect us, send them our way. As Matthew and Blake know very well, we have an insatiable appetite for data in this respect. So we will take their data, we will work with them.
One more thing that I wanted to say, because this is super important, right? How do we go down market? And one example I can give you on the Edge work in other countries. In India, we are doing Edge certification for self-built housing, which is, uncle and aunts building their own houses, but they are accessing MAGC Fund. And that is, for us, is going down market all the way to the people that they build their own houses. Hopefully we can do the same here as well, but for second tier developer, for sure, that's our market, and we really want to collaborate. Happy to help. Thank you.
Perfect. We are really perfectly on time. So thanks a lot to everyone who attended today, to all the speakers.